Welcome back to the Evolution of Dental podcast, brought to you by Evolution Dental Science, where we share the stories of the people and the technology shaping the world of dentistry. And speaking of shaping the world of dentistry, what's more important than finding the right bite, which is the subject of our conversation today with Björn Zäuner. This is the problem that I never really thought was going to be solved, if I'm honest. And then when I found out about your BiteFinder a couple of years ago, I was impressed it's such an understatement. Like it's such an incredible leap. You go from this advanced digital process where you're intraoral scanning. You've got these scanners that are accurate 10, 15 microns, you've cross arch. Okay, and now we got this awesome scan, but then the bite's off because, half the time they don't know what they're doing with that. And so it's either blue moose and they're shipping you that, or you're hand articulating the 3D printed model, and now you're back to the analog all over again. So yeah, tell me a little bit more. How did you overcome that?
So the three issues we have with an intraoral scanner are actually, one, the scanner itself, and it's not, the brand doesn't matter here, right? So they're all a bit different, but they all have the same issue. It's you scan upper, you scan lower, and then you say bite down, and you scan the bite. The single jaw will be matched into the bite scan. And in that process of matching, there's a mistake that can happen. Then there's people who only scan one side and skip the other one. That's definitely not helping. So please always scan both sides. And not only the bite, but also in general, please, no more quadrants. Do the full arch scan. Maybe skip the bite scan, that's fine. Use BiteFinder, but do a full arch. So that is important one. So the matching. Number two, the user, right? Similar with every computer issue, is usually the problem sits in front of the computer. And it's the dentist or the assistant who's performing the scan. They are busy, right? So they have to be fast, time pressures there. And then you put, depending on the scanner, some are bigger than others, but it's not easy to do a great scan, right? To be honest. And then the third factor is the patient. So the patient might be lying down, they might be afraid of the dentist, they're shaking, they have pain here, so they bite a little tilted, right? More on this side than on that side. All kinds of crazy stuff. So this all combined makes it impossible to have a great bite that is scanned. So the only reason, looking at first principles, we came to was calculating or simulating the bite, which will reduce all these errors we've talked to before. So how it essentially works is we try to teach the computer to see what our hands feel, right? As a technician, what you try to do when you're experienced, more or less how to put them together, how to articulate them well. And across the board, if you're a big lab in the US, we have that problem, especially because you guys have huge labs, right? In Germany, you have a lot of small labs where you have like the owner and he takes care of the articulation, right? So then you at least can think that the quality is a bit better on average. But if you have like 10, 20 people that all day do nothing but articulating two models, mistakes happen, right? So, and that's the foundation of everything. So the computer analyzes like the anatomy, how the crowns are, how the angulation is. You have cusps, right? All analyzing the abrasions, the fissures, and then it simulates basically the bite process and gets into maximum intercuspation, right? So that's the starting point. And it is what we saw had the biggest impact on our remake rate in the lab, is to make sure that what we start on before we design matters a lot, right? And you, if you can, try to avoid problems before you go into production, right?
And so you said it kind of feels out the articulation, sort of like a human would with a hand articulator.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's. I mean, some people compare it also to like a digital version. I mean, we started with static. I go to what we did next, but it's like a functional generated pathway, FGP technique, right? Where you basically try to simulate what the human would do with something that is a little softer, like wax or silicon or whatever, to try to get an impression of what would happen when you place the crown and adjust it accordingly. And that's basically what we try to automate in a few seconds without any expert knowledge needed, right? So you put in the two scans, we find MIP, Then we generate from MIP every possible lower jaw movement, all the excursive movements, and then have that, and we call the next step a virtual try-on, right? So when you do the design, you can use that to virtually adjust your crown design or your splint or your denture, whatever, with the patient's specific movements. So you don't have to manually remove that early contact after milling, right, in the lab or in the clinic. That was the whole concept. And then we took it a step further with also being able to increase the vertical dimension, which most people didn't even see, and they go crazy when they figure out that, what, you can also do that? But yeah, we reverse engineer the most likely opening of the vertical. You can use it for splints, tabletops, dentures. It's really nice. It's more accurate than what you could do in any other software so far. And then the crazy thing, I mean, you asked about the xSNAP. We work together with xSNAP for a few years now. It's basically a 3D printed articulator. And we now, if we combine the two technologies, it's beautiful because it makes our virtual technology a tangible physical product, right? So we take the scan, we optimize occlusion, generate the motion, generate a model. With this, we call it biometric articulator. So we use the movement to carve out a patient-specific condylar path and a patient-specific incisal table in the model. So it's one step. It's beautiful. It's different to an articulator, right? It's not as heavy, so you have to get used to it. But imagine you get all this in one click, fully automated. Even in color if you want. So it's just a next level step, because one of our slogans, besides bad bites suck, which is like the foundation of why we exist, is no human is average. And that's a bit more powerful, I would say, in terms of a slogan and why that matters. And we took that from the average value articulator, right? And the problem is actually the thing itself. It's practical, but it assumes that every human is the same, and we can use 25 degrees or 30 degrees for all of us. But you're maybe 32 and I'm maybe 37 degrees, whatever. And if we use the same for everybody, then somebody has to adjust it, or the patient has to live with something that is not custom made for him. It's like everybody going into a shop and buy medium-sized T-shirts, right? Doesn't work.
Absolutely. So it sounds like the xSNAP was, so that's outside of BiteFinder, but then you co-developed a solution to work together. Is that right?
Yeah. So they started on their own. Now it's part of the BiteFinder group, right? And the technologies are merged. It's a beautiful combination in terms of workflow, how it fits together. We can do very nice things now also in the new version, which is also combining tracked motion, right? So we generate one, which is most feasible option for the everyday case. But if you have a more special case, rehab case, and so on, you have these jaw tracking devices. So you can also upload the recorded motion and use that to create this articulator. Or you can even combine both technologies, right? So you have the tracked one with the simulated one, and you get best of both worlds. Because if it's simulated, the simulation is very good at these close movements, which are relevant for the crown design, and not so good for these very big movements, right? And especially if you look at crazy rehab cases, it's very important, right? Or people have very difficult TMJ issues or so on.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I was noticing with it. Is that it's so much more than just a hinge. You know, that it has that multi-track movement, and it has the support pin in the middle that also guides the plane of occlusion there. And it sounds like your interest in technology was a pretty heavy influence in getting into this. And developing an AI solutions is not an easy thing to do. Like, was that a daunting experience? Like, did you jump into that feast first, or how was that like?
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging. It continues to be, but it's also super interesting, right? So I mean, looking at the different factors on what needs to be done to achieve something like that is, one, you need to really precisely understand the problem, right? And that's, I think, what's different. And we're not a huge team, right? So everybody still asks, like, why can't somebody else just do it? I mean, Yeah, you can try, but it's in most big organizations, the problem is that you have maybe you even have 100 developers, but they're developers, right? They don't have the dental knowledge, so then they are consolidated under a manager, and he speaks to somebody who has some dental knowledge, and they try to figure something out, and then they need to translate it to all these people, and they do something, and then it's different than what expected, and this loop is incredibly inefficient. So if you get together like we have been in the beginning and you have all the necessary information you need to actually solve that problem, we had real life data from the lab, we could connect like bad cases, outcomes, we tracked very well if we had remakes and what was the reason for it, what was the original data, how would that look like when we optimized the data before, so we could track all that. And we fundamentally try to break down occlusion, which is a big part of what we try to achieve here as an overall big picture, because dentistry is beautiful and the artisanship is nice, but it's also what limits us in terms of growth, right? We don't have enough technicians to do this artisanship, right? And it's so complicated to make a beautiful and functional crown at the same time. So what we wanted to do is take this almost religious approach on occlusion, because you have all these different people who say, this is how you do occlusion, this is how you do it. And it's like, yeah, every human is different, but the concept shouldn't be too crazy apart. And it shouldn't be only possible by a handful of people, right? Everybody deserves a functional bite, right? This is the foundation of what we're trying to achieve. So it doesn't matter to what kind of dentist you go or what kind of lab you go. If they use BiteFinder, you will get a functional restoration, right? And everybody deserves that.
Yeah, the bites may be individualized, but the science of the bite is persistent, even though it applies differently from one to the next.
And we have parameters you can change, right? And you can always argue about like, when is a contact point, right? That's a big one, right? Okay. Now we offer that you can define yourself what a contact point is, or how much surface you would need. But at some point you have to say, now it's contact or not, right? So, but what it comes down to is it a reasonable occlusion to start from, right? We have a balance, or is it like intersecting for a millimeter on that one side, which is like, can't be true, right? You have some movement of the root in the in the structure, but not a millimeter, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's particularly useful for people with a weird cross-bite like my own, where if they take just one quadrant bite, even on a full arch scan, the result is going to be that one side of the arch is passing through the other. And even with both quadrant scans, sometimes the software can't really reconcile the difference there. So and I'm certainly not the only one in that boat. So it's a very powerful solution to a pretty common problem. And you were mentioning before we started recording that you just got back from Brazil. Is that right? How's this been received internationally in various countries? What's the reception been like?
Yeah, that's to be honest, that's completely crazy. Because we didn't put any boundaries up from the beginning, right? We started as a solution for our own, and then eventually talking to friends who had labs and all that, they said, "Oh, what you doing? How did you solve that? And can I also have that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And eventually we started making it a actually usable product and offer it to other people, and then came with a lot of challenges. But one of the things we didn't do is we didn't put up any boundaries, right? So usually when you start in your country, and then you go to the next one, you look into it, and blah blah blah. So we launched at IDS, and it's international, right? Very international. So all the people that have an intrinsic motivation to learn are going to exhibitions, right? They go there to explore, or what's new, and people came and they were like, "What the hell? That works? Can I try it?" Right? So and they brought it back to their countries. So from like a few weeks after we launched, we've been in almost 40 countries.
40
And
countries.
Yeah, and since then it's going completely crazy. And of course, there are countries where we are more successful than others. And one of it is Brazil. Brazil's our number one country for the last like 6 to 9 months, which is crazy. And it's because somebody picked it up at IDS it is crazy. We have more than 400 new users from Brazil every month.
400 a month. That's insane.
And now that's what we said, okay, we have to go to Brazil.
Yeah,
because we never
absolutely.
And it's an incredible country. Hospitality is amazing. Food is amazing. Music, right? It was the most energetic exhibition we've been to so far. It's no comparison, right? It's massive. I mean, Brazil has the highest amount of dentists worldwide. They have incredibly amount of universities. They produce so many dentists, right? And it's they're all very open. They're very social, right? So it's crazy. And go into the market. We now hire two people in Brazil, translate everything in Portuguese, and do stuff there. It's amazing, and the feedback is so good because they have these problems. They have so many new dentists, and they buy scanners, and they send across the world, and it's going completely nuts, right? So they need something that helps them control and get a consistent quality. So we're there to help, and it's going great.
That sounds awesome. If I could walk back a step, though, if I heard you correctly, you said you developed it as an in-house solution, and then other people were interested in it. This wasn't a product that you intended to launch from the outset. This was something you built for your purposes.
Yeah, we built it out of necessity, right? Because we had that issues like everybody had, right? And then essentially it became bigger than what was going on in the lab, right? So I decided to sell the lab last year and focus full time on this because I always like doing all these big projects and automations and all that. But in Germany, you could not build a huge, massive lab. It's just not built for that. So I always like to talk to other big labs and brainstorm on how you can improve things. And now I think we have more than 13,000 users worldwide. And I think we visited almost 1,000 labs over the last 2 years in person because we travel a lot, and very big labs, small labs. And I can do what I always wanted to do in my own, right? Just improve things, automate things, and make them better on scale because that's what we need.
1,000 labs in 2 years. That's so many. That's like 2 a day. It's incredible.
It's crazy. It's so we've seen so many different setups, and we now got a few people in the US and in Germany and in Ireland, and it's crazy, to be honest. It's really crazy, but it's also very rewarding because people are open. They need solutions. Every lab is swamped, and you guys know it best, right? With work, right? It's not that the work is like not there. It's just like, how can we even handle all that work?
Right. As you said, there are less dental technicians and more work all the time. You find that there's more labs or doctors, or is it kind of an even split between your user base?
So that's one of the most interesting questions we still face to openly share that, right? So we were born in the lab, right? So the lab is our natural place to be. The lab is the natural solution provider to the dentist, right? That's
you're an ortho lab, right?
Yeah, also ortho, yeah. So the lab was always there to help resolve issues because the dentist was busy treating the patients and like, oh, I did something, please fix it. Right. So, and that's fine. That's the relationship, right? But the biggest value add we have is on the clinical side or on the patient side, because if we see that when you run BiteFinder on the cases, the average insertion time goes down a lot, right? And a dentist hour, especially in the US, is so expensive nowadays that if we save them a few minutes on every treatment, that's huge, right? They can treat more patients on a daily basis, and therefore they can send more cases to the lab, right? So it's all a win-win situation. The patient doesn't have to come back twice because they say, not good, and they grind for 5 minutes, and then the next patient is in the chair waiting, and then they say, go home, try, and come back in 2 weeks if it's not good. What happens? They come back, and then they continue to adjust it, right? And that's not how it should be, right? And that is something where we see a lot of dentists are interested, but it's a bit harder for the everyday general dentist, let's say, to apply it, right? They have the interest, but they, for example, don't have a scanner yet. So they just call their lab and say, please use this. I want less chairside adjustments. And then you have so to be precise, like 1/3 of our customers already are dentists, and 2/3 are labs. So that is roughly the split, but a big growth on the dentist side, especially now with growing chairside, in-house labs, all that. Especially with the xSNAP, it's beautiful if you have a printer and a scanner in the clinic. You scan, you click one button, and this will be transferred to your printer, and you have it.
Yeah, especially in an increasing world of model-free restorations.
Yeah. And why did we need the model at all, right? I mean, it's with this, it might be nice to have it, but before it was a check model, right? You used it to see and check if what you milled or printed is fitting, right?
Right.
But if we do everything right in the first place, we wouldn't need that, right? If we have calibrated machines, furnace, and all that, then it's just due to the fact, how is my design? Because the manufacturing part should reflect the design almost 1-to-1, or with a deviation that is okay, right? Which is usually the case. So the problem is the beginning, the data, and that's mainly the bite. The relation of the two jaws in space, if that's slightly off, and then you do your design based on that, then your crown is also slightly off, and that's why you have to check it afterwards.
Yeah, it's a good way to get that out of the way and handled before it ever hits production.
Exactly.
These days, because I mean, your average cost per crown, cost of materials with zirconia, if you're talking lab costs anyway, is going to be between like $4 and $8, depending on the level of zirconia you're using. So material's not so bad, but it's the time. It's not. I mean, on the positive end, you may have a milling machine that can crank one out in say 10 to 12 minutes a unit. On the more average end of things, you're looking at probably 20 minutes or so, and that has nothing to do with the chairside mills, which are their own animal there. So yeah, the time that it consumes, and then also you have the human interaction with it. I mean, ideally, yeah, they just drop into place, and something like BiteFinder that definitely pushes a lot further toward the envelope there. But you still have somebody has to sit there and adjust it and make sure that all the milling marks are removed, all the support pins are no longer visible on the crown. Somebody has to glaze and stain it. Like, yeah, it's the time of going back and readjusting and changing, especially as you said, chairside.
Yeah. So that and you have material implications, right? When you have zirconia and you grind it down in the chair, you have micro cracks, and then you have to polish it afterwards, and then it affects the longevity of the crown, and then you have labs to give guarantee, and then the whole entanglement of craziness is just so unnecessary, right? So and we try to look at it from how can we reduce the variables of error here in that process. And the only way to avoid it is to have a good organization, right? It starts with a management system where you have your cases. It starts with getting good data, and we are now also got to a point where we check the general quality of the scan, not only the bite, but because there's more to it than the bite itself. But it's one major thing, and then we should only work on good data, because else it's the destiny is clear, right? It will be a up somewhere, right? And it will not be useful to do that. And then you have to make sure that it's good. We check that. We check the design. Then it goes on the machine, and then the regular process. It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, you can only create a crown as good as the data you're provided.
Yeah. Garbage in, garbage out.
Scan, right? It's the impression before and now the scan. You can only rise to the quality of the data. And so, as I understand, BiteFinder does some automatic correction of the scan data. Is that right?
So we do a lot of things, and then we transition to more and more parts of workflow improvements, because it's the necessary thing to do, right? And we work with a lot of great partners, right? Where we integrate with scanners, with management systems, right? And CAD systems like exocad, printers. We're gonna launch some nice integrations at Chicago as well. So it's it's the ease of use, right? It's the connectivity that is also missing in dental. That was always annoying because you have these 10 different software pieces and none of it communicates with each other.
You have some of it intentionally even.
It's crazy.
Where they're like intentionally not wanting to communicate with each other.
I get it, right? If you have a closed system, allows more ease of use, and more control of the workflow. But dental is so complicated; it's so hard to have everything in one closed loop, right? The downside then is you have to connect pieces, and then it gets really messy. Yeah,
and that's why BiteFinder is completely cloud-based.
It is cloud-based.
You have a very open platform.
We have an open API. We like to integrate everywhere we can because it's not only no human is average, but also no lab and no clinic is average, right? So they all have different ways on how to do things. And why should we preach this is the only way, right? I mean, we can say this is a way we know that works really well. And if you want, you can just use this. But if you have another way, why shouldn't we be able to integrate into that? We have labs who have their own portals where doctors upload cases. We can integrate there. So the moment the dentist uploads something, we can check it and we say, map, scan quality, not good. Here's a proposal of how we automatically optimize the data. Do you want to accept that or do you want to go with your own version? Stuff like that we did.
That sounds like a huge time saver. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like where it's basically intercepting the scan data before the lab ever gets it, almost like an extra employee verifying the data. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that can be done in existing lab management software. That can like Great Lab, for example. We have an integration pilot and different others. We have portals like just websites of dental labs they build where you can basically just upload an STL. We now worked on the integration with SprintRate, for example. They also have their design service. So the moment you upload something, it's important to have that direct feedback, right? And we work on intraoral scanner integrations a lot where we directly, when you do the scan, you can also be informed about that.
Really?
You can choose, we even want to do a bite scan or not. Because if it's wrong anyways, just save the time, do a full large scan, skip the quadrant part, please, and skip the bite scan, right? If you're time aware, right?
That sounds real exciting. So you're working on you're already live integrated with some of these iOS platforms where they can check the bite and check the scan data in real time.
Yeah, it's in process with most of them. There's a few already live integrated. Of course, it's never finished, right? Integrations get better over time, but Medit, for example, was one of the early ones we integrated with RunYes, different others. So it's nice. The workflow sometimes is just too constrained by design, right? So it wasn't the idea to simply say, I don't want to have a bite scan, right? It's part of their standard workflow. So it takes a while to rethink the whole workflows. But yeah, in general, it's possible. But the most used way is that the dentist just sends scans to the lab, and the lab either in the lab management system automatically uses, or they use our software, or they whatever, different forms, or use it in exocad directly. It's very nice. You can have it in the DB, open the case, optimize it before you do any design.
Before you even dive in and start placing teeth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's in the end, there's a human at every case, behind every case, right? It's we tend to forget that. Speaking only about milling machines and the newest zirconia and this and efficiency here and there, but in the end, there's a patient who needs to wear this crown for the rest of his life, right? So it better fits.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things for me anyway that got me into this was the technology and this bridge between, man, this is the coolest tech, but also we're making completely unique things that change people's lives that have never been made in the history of mankind before. Each one of them is completely unique. And that's something that absolutely to keep in mind. And it's really cool to see how you've intercepted further and further up the up the pipeline of some of the pain points that cause this either not to be ideal for the patient and also take up more time at the chairside and in the lab, remakes and adjustments, and integrating all that into one little platform that's able to clean that up before it even hits the bench, as they say. So
Yes.
did you know from the beginning that you were going to be using an AI platform for this? And with the AI, what was that like diving into that for the first time? Like, because AI just a couple of years ago, for most people anyway, was just this esoteric theory that was in sci-fi movies, and then now you're using it to articulate the bites better than most people can. Most of the experts, like you said, the gatekeeping wizards. What was that like?
Yeah. The wizards sitting at the master bench, the quality control technicians. Yeah. I mean, look, the vision changes a lot. I mean, it's nothing close to the original idea. And I think that's very natural, and that's okay. So we go with the flow, but we let's say we develop the consequences of our vision and the communication we have with the users on a day-to-day basis. So the overall idea from the beginning was to have this end-to-end quality control, and how we do it, that is evolving over time, but end-to-end quality control, which allows us to prevent bad dentistry from happening, right? The crown that is too high, that stays in the mouth, that will up your posture, headaches and all that, the remakes and all that. And that makes good dentistry better, right? The people who try really hard but they take like hours to make a nice crown because they care, but it's simply not economically feasible anymore to spend that amount of time. So this is only possible by having a software that doesn't get tired, that doesn't retire, that is always there to look at the cases, right? I was lucky I had great master technicians. I had a dad who was a dentist. I could always ask, like, is that right? Is that the correct way how this fits together, right? But it's not scalable, right? So and it's not feasible to look at every case, especially when we see in the US DSOs like massive scale. They can get prices from labs that are very hard to get a consistent quality on. But at the same time, they need to get a crown that fits, because even if it's cheap and they have to spend an hour chairside adjusting, I mean, the math doesn't math, right?
Right.
That's the big problem here. So that was the original vision, and it was always fascinating to us to automate processes, right? To reduce the manual error, because it's not that humans couldn't do it, and in most things we are still and will be better than a machine, right? No question. And there will always be edge cases where somebody needs to look at, right? So we have this built in with the human in the loop, right? So that works, but it's just not scalable, and we need to equip our technicians with technology that allows them to do 100 cases a day and not only 10 or 20 or 40, right? So we need to get better. We need to have this, basically it's more like becoming a cyborg, right? So getting the tools at hand and not being replaced, right? That's not happening. There's so much potential. We work on nice prototypes, for example. Also, you spoke about removable, right? So there's, I think I read that 40 million Americans that need a denture don't get one because it's too expensive and they don't get appointments. I mean, what the hell?
Or they don't fit.
Or they don't fit, right?
Had one and they don't fit, so they just don't wear them.
Wow. That is half of Germany's population, right? Running around without teeth, right? It's basic human right to chew food, right? And not like only get slushies or so, right? It's ridiculous. And why is that so? Because we did some checks, and the average appointments needed to get a denture in is ridiculously high. It's eight appointments. 8. What the hell? I mean, because they send a scan and the technician tries to somehow find the vertical dimension. They ship something, they adjust it, ship back and forth. Yeah, of course that will be expensive. And you're looking at more than $1,000 for a removable denture that is like okay-ish. I mean, what? That's crazy. Right? So we think of like, I think this process should be automated. we have everything we need for that. You get a good CBCT, good IO scan, everything will be matched. Take automated denture design, virtual try on of the vertical, check the movements, boom, that's it, right? So there's so many amazing things you can do, but maybe I just give you a quick look at the new update we're going to launch in Chicago. And then,
Yeah, please.
All right, so brand new version 4.0 going to launch in Chicago. It is nothing compared to what is live now, and people already love it. So it's I'm really excited to go through that. Big things. What is new? It's cross-platform. So now it's the current version is only on Windows. So this will be live in the browser on Mac and Windows. Use it wherever you want. You can have, and I see I'm calling myself a tab messy. So in the browser, I always have a gazillion tabs open. So now I also have a gazillion tabs open in BiteFinder, which is nice because I work on a lot of cases in parallel. That's cool.
But you can do that. You can open a bunch of them in parallel. That's really cool in and of itself.
Yes. So that works nice. We also have big requests as like a case log where you see previous cases and reload them and all that. So that was cool. But essentially now you start with this screen, you choose what you want to do, and then let's say dynamic occlusion, you just put all the files in that you need. And that's the next big thing we changed, because we started with the basics, what you always have, upper and lower jaw. But we came to the fact that all people ask, like, can I also do this and more complex cases, and what about margin lines? And it got a bit crazy. So the new architecture allows us to handle more data, which is not only upper lower jaw scan, it is margin lines, it is face scans, it is CBCT, it is recorded motion, it is scan bodies, it is, everything we can. You just dump it in here, and then we do the magic, right? So that's a big improvement, because it helps also increase quality and cases that we can process. So that's very nice. And then just open a case here. Also big change. Currently, we only have a 2D preview. We now have a 3D preview. So everything here is free of charge until you export it. So you can look at it in 3D. You see the before. In this case, it was scanned openly. So obviously not in maximum exposure. Can use that here. We also have a split view now. So you can look at before and after at the same time. In this case, it's pretty obvious what's the better one, but in other cases, it's not. So that's very cool. We got the jaw motion refined with our new engine. We got a few more motions we have in place now, so that we can simulate, including chewing. So all of that motion, we can just save and export as an XML file. You can use it in exocad to then, instead of an articulator, use the motion to virtually adjust the design, which is amazing and reduces the adjustments by a lot. So that is cool. Definitely like that. The graphics are also a new level. Just talked to some of our users in Brazil, and they say, like, that looks like serious software now. Before it was very functional. In the end, we are Swiss and German. We didn't focus too much on the aesthetics at first, let's say. We wanted it to work. So it just looks completely different. We got the object browser on the left, which helps us also manage different kind of files. And also, if you don't like the result, you can rerun it. And then you have multiple solutions here. And you can compare the solutions, which is also great for tricky cases. Little like usability things like auto mesh transparency. When you look at it from above, it automatically gets transparent. You can check the contact points. That is beautiful. A functional piece that I love, which was reported to us from a few customers. We had the vertical dimension previously as well. But looking at function, if we say we do a splint, and the doctor typically sends the scans with, I want 3 millimeter opening, right? So let's say if I put in 3 millimeter opening, that's nice. But now we also calculate the material thickness that this implies. So when we now connect the dot with exocad, we can even automate the whole process. I can say the 0.76 is not enough for material thickness in this case. So actually, I need 1 millimeter material thickness, minimum material thickness. and this will translate into 3.4 millimeter of bite opening.
That's powerful. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just sitting here looking at it, thinking of bite splints I've designed recently. That's super helpful. And
Yes.
you said this integrates like this directly into exocad.
Yeah, so we're working on an improved integration with exocad, which we launched at Insights. This now you can do that, and you can, for example, save that workflow with a custom workflow. It's called Bite Splint, and then what it does is it loads the case, finds MIP, open it with the parameters you set to. In exocad, you already have them in the work params, for example, so that you can directly grab them.
Pulls that straight in.
Yeah, that would be very sweet.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then, yeah, that is like these tiny things that just make so much sense. And I love that people we work with and who beta tested it, they loved it. So that's great. We can even use that for like sleep apnea devices, which is like a big new thing, right? So you can go into protrusion and then lock that movement and then open it in that position. So that's also very sweet. Open it and save it in that position, do your design. That's it. You can now, for example, click the X icon to generate the xSNAP also in the open position, which is also cool when you would need it. But I think in most cases, I would say do the splint and skip the model. So that's beautiful, new. Then the report, of course, similar to before, we have some values, different styling. We can also customize it, put the lab logo on top of it. They can share it with the dentist. So all these sweet little quality of life improvements, which are nice. And then when let's see, do I have a printed case somewhere? Oh, no, let me go to this one first. Maybe that's cool. So looking at more data, when we now import the CBCT, the interesting thing is CBCT is usually done in an open position to have a better accuracy of the scan itself. But you need to work in MIP, right? So we bring it back, and then we can also take into account the TMJ for generating the movements, which is cool, especially for dentureless cases.
Jordan, that's super impressive. Like this is it's just so exciting for the nerd in me. Oh man, that's incredible.
Let me just see another case somewhere here.
Especially that it's able to process files as cumbersome as CBCT files. Like DCM files are heavy lifting for most software.
When we get a quadrant and we detect it and you do the xSNAP, we generate an artificial second joint to make it more stable, if you would want to print. Yeah,
that's exciting. I say that like the rest of this isn't. That's really cool though. Wow, man.
Yeah, so that's a few of the news. I mean, more we'll share on Chicago. So or maybe one more. So when you save a case, I mean that's a scan now, but if this would be a printable file, you can either download it, or new is also that we can share it. So we can send it, for example, you can integrate different printers we work with, or you can send it and connect to your management system or to other users, right? So you as a lab could send it to your dentist for approval, right? So just connect with your dentist, send it. He will then open the file, he see what you did, and he can accept it. Or as I said, when you have a printable model, you can just directly put it on the printer, and here we go. So that is the rough summary of V4, and there's more to come. It's going to be more connected, faster. Just overall, we put so much time in this and user feedback.
It shows. Yeah, it sounds like you're just drinking in user feedback and then rising to every single occasion.
Yes,
that's so impressive. I mean that's its own job in and of itself, is just taking in and filtering out all the user feedback.
Yes. Yeah, we love to stay close because we don't know better, right? Everybody has problems, and we try to consolidate the feedback of what is really important to solve. What is a way of how they would like to use it? Because I can sit here and think about it, or I just talk to 10 people and figure out what they really want, right? And of course, sometimes I have a good idea, but most of the time, the people who do it every day, they know better, right? And of course, coming from the lab, we are all like very, very hands-on people, and we go to labs occasionally to do stuff and remember like, oh, that was really painful to do that by hand, to get the feeling and fix the pain. But yeah, you have to talk to people, and we are very close. So everybody who wants, just feel free to book a demo. It's free on our website. Talk to us, give us feedback. We have WhatsApp groups whatsoever. It's we drink that, right? So we love that.
That's awesome. Yeah, working directly with the people that you work back with the customers, that's where the relationship should be. Where do you see the future of dentistry? Like, where do you see this going in like 5 or even 10 years? Not just BiteFinder, but beyond.
So I think a big part and is the basics that we still need to improve. Even in the biggest labs we go to, the number one priority for most of them is still organization, how to handle data and files and RXs and there's so much, how to handle materials and then compliance, and then if you mill 20 crowns out of a blank and put it in a furnace, like where does it go next, right? Which one is which, right? And in a fully automated process, they come more and more challenges like that. So it's a lot of it's complicated, but it's a basic problem, organization, right? That is one thing I see a lot of potential that needs to be optimized. The second thing is then, of course, what we focus on is the data pre-processing. So we make sure we only work on good data, and either we can so we check the quality, and then so that's how we work with big labs. We process all the scans. We analyze the quality, and if it's below a certain quality threshold, we try to fix it. And if we can fix it, it can continue. If we can't fix it, it will, for example, send an email automatically to the dentist to say this has to be rescanned, because it's not just the bite is off; it's like the complete scan is a mess. So that is something we shouldn't work on, both of us. It will be frustrating. It will be 100% guaranteed a remake. So that's the thing. It's also end-to-end quality control, where we work with, for example, a few big labs that the end product, like if you do a crown, a model, a splint, the end product will be scanned. So not human QC only, but scan it. And then we compare it to the design, see if there's any differences. That's a big one. So we make sure that things go out the door that match the design. That is important. Design, definitely a big one, right? So there's various companies who now work on AI design for crowns and bridges and splints, and all not great yet. So I think the customization and big part of AI design is also good quality. So we work with almost all of them to improve the quality of the automated design. That's a big one for us. And then looking into what we can automate next, I mentioned something like Dentures, which is heavily dependent on occlusion and vertical, where we excel at, right? So that's a nice one. And then in the end, of course, there's a lot of clinical applications on chairside, right? Connected to the scanners, we see that. Looking at X-rays, connecting all the data, make suggestions for treatment plans. Communication with the patient, I think, is impressive. So one example that I still love, and we had on our wish list like many years ago. I made a wish list, and one was to fix occlusion. So we did that, and the other one was automatically generate a nice video of how you would look like when you have your new teeth, right? Which was very well done by True Smile video, for example, from exocad. So that is very nice to see a simulated version of the outcome to agree on a treatment, because the old mock-ups and you send screenshots of the design in exocad is like, for a patient, very hard to go with that, right? it's just the imagination is not there. We see that every day. For us, it looks normal. And even this, I mean, for a regular patient, this is like, what the hell? I mean,
That's my mouth? What?
yeah. So having a face scan here, right, makes things so much more compelling for a patient, right?
More
And all
human.
this, more human, right? And that's where I see this and where I think technology will help us a lot, because it makes things so much faster to make it more human and more controlled over time, right? Presented nicely and compelling to a patient who has no idea of why do I need that, right? So another example, splints. We talked about splints before. If I can show him this is how you move, and maybe we even have a time period. So I can say, if you continue to move like that for the next 4 years, we simulate the grinding, and that's how you look like in 4 years. And this is how you would look like, right? We go in here, we open it. We even have an automated proposal for a splint. We show how it looks like on your face. You wear it at night. It protects your teeth. We can print it chairside for $200. You have it in half an hour. Do you want it or not? Yes. Right?
$200, half an hour, save yourself a lifetime of suffering.
Exactly, right? So these things will be much easier. It will be not a lot of hassle, because right now you have to know, okay, how do I do a splint? What do I need to take care of? How do I open the vertical? Do I have to take a leaf gauge? And then what material do I use? Do I send it to the lab, or do I print it? And then how do I make sure it fits afterwards? I have to grind for half an hour, and my hourly rate is $1,000 and blah, blah. And then you look at a splint and it's like $1,000. What? Why? Right? It shouldn't be that expensive. I mean, we all should make money, right? Don't get me wrong. Dentists need to make money. Labs need to make money. We need to make money. All good. But we can just do so much more and so much more efficient, because there's enough patients to treat. That's not the problem. It's just it's incredibly inefficient. That's the problem.
I think that's a brilliant insight. Bjorn, thank you so much for taking your time with us today. Where can people find you online? Where can people find BiteFinder, and where can they learn more?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. You can just go to bite-finder.com, open a website, or go to Instagram, look for BiteFinder, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. You can browse yourself, get some information, create a demo account for free, test it, or book a demo with us. Happy to personally show you and walk you through that. Love to show all the tips and tricks. And then if you want that, you can choose a package that suits you right for the volume you guys have. So it's pretty straightforward.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Hey, welcome.
And thank you everyone else for joining us for this episode of Evolution of Dental Podcast. Please look for us on all the major podcast platforms. Remember to like, subscribe, and never stop evolving.